Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be talking about the solar power generators or portable power units, whatever you want to call them. Since the recent events with the power outages, people seem to be a little bit more concerned and started to consider a little bit more of investing into the power generators just in case. I have done a few videos, I've done a few reviews, and we talked about the basics of the things that you need to consider before buying a solar generator. But there still seems to be quite a lot of questions floating about, and the main one is really how you should choose the one that is best for you. So in today's video, I'm going to try to make it very straightforward. So we're going to be looking at the 5 points you should consider before buying one of the generators. So the first question is, why do you want to have it and what are you intending to run from it? So for example, okay, the scenarios are totally different. Some of you might want to purchase one of them and just put this in a corner of your room. Is there as a backup just in case the lights go out, so you can just power yourself a light and read a book if the power goes out. Some of you might want to take it camping. Some of you might want to run the fridges whilst you're camping. You might want to use that at home as a backup if the power goes out to run your fridge freezers. And some of you might also do, like ourselves, wanting to run the whole van conversion of one of the big units. So this is the big questions. Understand why you want to have it. Secondly is understanding the power of the items you're trying to plug in to the unit. So for example, okay, I'm going to take this little unit here. This is the All Powers R600, okay? This unit is 300 watt hours, 600 watts draw, 1200 watts surge, okay, and 220 watts input. So for example, okay, to work out what sort of size you need. So if you only want to run yourself a light bulb, for this instance, we say a light bulb takes 30 watts, which it doesn't, it only takes about 5. But for the ease of math, we're going to go with 30. So this unit is 300 watt hours. So if you plug in a 30 watt light bulb, that means that light bulb could be powered for hours. At the same time, if you plug in something bigger, something that might take 150 watts, okay, and we have 300 watt hours, then we'll divide this by 150 and it gives us 2. So if you plug in a really powerful something that will take 150 watts, that means you can run this for 2 hours from this unit. Okay, we're going further then. For example, if you are looking at, say, fridges, okay, the average fridge potentially run approximately 100 watts. And of course, it is intermittent. So it goes on and off. It gets to the cooler temperature, then cuts off and continues going. So for example, if we take it on the basis, this is 100 continuous watts, and then we divide our 300 watt hours by 100, that means you can run your fridge continuously for 3 hours if the power goes out. And the same instance, if the units or whatever items you're plugging into draw in more power, so if you have something that takes 300 watts, that means you can only run this item for 1 hour. So hopefully that kind of makes a little bit of a sense. So generally we can move on to a bigger thing. So for example, if you're wanting to run yourself a kettle, an average kettle will take approximately, the one we have, between 1200 to 3000 watts. And of course, their wattage does differ depending how full your kettle is. So bearing this in mind, okay, this unit here is only 600 watts. It will never run at 1200 or 1500 watt kettle. This unit, for example, okay, is 2500 watts. So they will easily take and boil a kettle. So the point is, the higher your wattage of the item you intended to use, the bigger generator you need. At the same time, it's important to note, generally, if you're buying that, you will consider probably charging more than one item. So this is the wattage you have to think about. So for example, again, okay, you have multiple ports on most of the solar generators, and you basically have to combine the wattage that you potentially going to be using. So for example, you might be using yourself a 100 watt phone charger or laptop charger, say 50 watts on the lights, 300 watts on something else. So the whole idea, you combine this together and it gives you amount of wattage that you be consuming. So at the same time, then you have to divide the watt hours by the wattage to give you the running time. What makes this easier in those units is generally when you plug in one of your items, whatever you're charging or drawing power, generally majority of the units do have the displays that will tell you exactly what the item is taking or drawing power, and it tells you how long you have left to be able to run this item until you totally deplete the power. I do hope it kind of makes sense. So the point is, in the layman terms, if you're only considering of running your spare lights for reading if the power goes out, then one of the tiny little units for 600 watts will do you absolutely fine. There are of course the smaller versions on the market. There are things like this is a 200 watts, so if you're only looking to charge your phone as an emergency, those units or sizes of them are totally sufficient. So the second question is, how often do you want to charge it and how quick you want to charge it? Again, it will totally depend on your scenario and what are you using for. So generally, the solar generators come with the panels or ability to be able to be charged via portable solar panels, and at the same time you can connect them to your general panels on the roof if you have the option to. The important part to look at with the solar generators is a maximum input, and generally I refer to this as a maximum solar input. So for example, if you have a unit here, okay, so we've got our 300 watt hours, so basically we want to charge that. So maximum input on this, it is 220 watts. This is coming in from the solar. If you have maximum amount of panels, they should be able to draw you 220 watts. It's important to understand that whatever solar panels you have will approximately yield you 80 to 85% of an input. So if you do have a 100 watt panel on your roof or whatever you put in the panel onto, it roughly will yield you 80-85 watts. So the point is, if you have a little unit, okay, it won't take you really long time to charge that, but you got to understand that, for example, at a 80 watt input, okay, it will take you a good few hours to charge the unit. Again, the good point about the majority of the units are they do come with the general 3-pin plugs or 2 pins, whatever you are. So you can generally plug them in and charge them. At the same time, you can plug them, charge them from your cigarette lighter. Again, the important thing to note is that cigarette lighters do take quite a while to charge. Plugging them into the wall, okay, it makes it really fast and really easy. So my point is to you, so if you're having one of those units just at your house and you want to be able just to have a backup power, then you don't have to worry about the solar panels, because you keep it topped up, keep it plugged in if you wanted to, and you're always going to have yourself some power in emergency. So where the question comes into, if you are using that and you want to be able to charge via solar, you have to understand that obviously, yes, the solar does take a little bit of time, and of course the wattage of the panel does depend on the sun quite a lot. So if it's overcast, it won't be able to be charged as quick as you'd want it to be. So the point is, again, if you're looking for a bigger unit or even a medium-sized unit, you got to understand and look into what is the maximum solar input, because having that unit here, for example, if I plug in just a 100 watt panel, because of the size of the batteries and the watt hours, it's going to take me a very long time to charge that. Yet at the same time, if I suddenly put 1,000 watt panels, okay, then that means the unit gonna get charged much quicker. So you got to work out and understand to what you have in terms of your solar panels or the input you intending to put, and then consider that when purchasing one of the units. So in a nutshell is, if you're intending to do solar and you want to charge the unit faster, make sure that you do have quite high solar input to match the panels you want to use or you already have. Again, I do hope it kind of makes sense. So number 3 is we're talking about the batteries. So there are a lot of units and there are still only 2 types of battery. We have the lithium ion and we have LiFePO4, which is latest invention. So lithium ion, which is the majority of the units you'll get. What some would say problem with the lithium ion, they only have a small amount of charge and discharge times. By small amount, I'm talking about 300 to 400 charges, but the benefits of the lithium ion batteries, they are generally a little bit lighter. So if you're considering again your unit based on potentially a size or the weight, that the lithium ion are generally a little bit more compact. But as I said, the life cycles of the battery charge and discharge is 300 to 400 times. So when we're now looking at the LiFePO4, which is one of the newest types of batteries, generally the units that use them, they're generally bigger and they are generally a little bit heavier. But it does come with a huge advantage of the cycles the batteries get. On average, you will be expecting approximately 1,000 charges and discharges. That's approximately 10 years with the general use. But as I said, okay, they are a little bit bigger, they are a little bit heavier, but they do have their advantage. So to you, if the weight doesn't matter, or if you are literally just buying this as a backup unit and you're not intending to be using that on the regular basis, then you consider buying yourself the lithium ion one. Generally, they are a little bit cheaper because the battery is a little bit of the old hat, if that makes sense. And if you're looking of a lot of usage, trying to get a lot of usage from the unit, then buying the one LifePort 4 would be a better option. Next one, I'm going to be talking about the display and the layout of your output. Okay, so again, majority of the units come with a display. So you can see some are smaller, some are bigger, and generally the bigger the unit, the bigger the display. As I said, there's loads and loads of brands out there, but you'd be actually surprised to know that not every single brand gives you a detailed breakdown of what it is currently happening on the display. What you really want, if you are new to the whole solar system, the solar generators, is to have a display that gives you as much information as possible. Because I totally understand, not everybody knows the wattage of a light bulb of a certain thing you're plugging in. Yes, generally you get this written on the appliances, but if you're really unsure, then you can obviously plug in and it will tell you, okay, the amount of power the item is drawing. At the same time, it's handy to see the indications of what's coming in, what's coming out, and to see when you plug in certain things like USBs, you want to be able to see that it's actually charging. So the decent display will give you a decent amount of information. In fact, it will give you all the information you might possibly need to understand what is currently happening with the unit. And secondly, I'm talking about the access or the output charges. Again, it's only relevant in certain circumstances. More so for us, as an example, for when we put in the solar generator in a van and we intend into the van conversion and intend to run the whole setup from that permanently wired, I want to be able to have my unit faced a specific way. So then if I want to get an access or have a look what's happening on the display, I have an option. So consider that, because sometimes you can see we've got the outputs are actually on the side of the unit, majority, and sometimes they are at the front. It might be absolutely minor to yourself, but it is something to consider if you are intending to put this unit somewhere and yet still to be able to access the display. And of course, number 5, which is probably be important to most of you, it's the unique selling points. Of course, again, all right, it depends what you're trying to buy your unit for and what's important to you. As I said, there's loads of them available, but they all seem to have different points. So first of all, the position of the handles, okay? It's different with a lot of units. Some of them, the smaller ones, have little handles like this. Some of them have integrated handles. Some of them have handles like that. Although, again, it is totally personal choice, and it is dependent whether you want to drag this unit from place to place. You want to be able to hold this with your hand. So the position of the handles might make a difference to you. But of course, there are other the unique points of each unit. For example, this one has a little pocket. And again, it might not make any difference to you whatsoever, but there could be sometimes at times where you want to keep the cables inside the unit or put something else in those pockets. So this is what counts as the unique selling points. At the same time as well, things like be able to use one of those units as a UPS. Not all of the units have this ability. UPS is an interrupted power supply. So if you are buying this unit to, for example, support a medical device, which will be paramount of continuous running. So for example, if you do have a medical device that's currently running and it will make a huge difference, or device will stop during a power cut or power surge, even for split seconds, and the device goes off, in some instances could be really detrimental. So the UPS will be there in between to cover this little surge of power or loss of power. So in this instance means if you plug in, say, let's call it a fridge, and I'll plug this in a unit that has a UPS, okay, and this unit then gets plugged in into the wall. So if the power cut happens, the UPS triggers, okay, our fridge still stays powered on without even a split second loss of power. So in points where it's really, really important, okay, it's where you constantly rely on the device that cannot lose power even for the second. So hopefully it does kind of make sense. Another thing is consider is a surge protection. Generally, majority of the decent quality units do have a surge protection, but again, something worth considering. Again, certain things like wireless charging, it could be really important to you. Again, depending where you use this, a lot of units have a wireless chargers on the top. but some don't. But again, it might not be important to you because you might be stuck in certain things or units on the top of each other. So as you can see, okay, there is loads and loads of things available, but they're all different. So the point is you got to consider, of course, what it is that you need before making that choice. And I'm hoping this video kind of made sense. I've tried to make it very straightforward with the basic examples to make people understand to, what's the best way of you choosing the power unit. Because again, as I said, I had loads and loads of questions. People understand to some degree what the maybe power thing means, but they just don't understand what is really the key points for you to be able to make a decision which unit is best for you. So I do hope you have found this video helpful. If you did, please don't forget thumbs up. Don't forget subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and I shall see you soon. Bye bye.